If you're a hospital or really any kind of business that has a lot of different entities, you really want your data to sort of look like this, right? So you have a hospital, your nomenclature of how you want to call things, and then what is a particular metric for that data. When you're using Google Analytics data, it'd be really nice if it could line up to how your business works, but a lot of times we see that data doesn't line up, and it looks more like, say, this, where you have these pages and they're all kind of inconsistent. And we find that really frustrating because we want your data to match your business and not your business to match the data. But we've definitely run across this a lot with healthcare organizations where they have to break up this data and say like, hey, if you're at Kingdom Hospital, if you're at Chicago Hope, you're going to have to find this data of how many page views you have out of these reports. And there's different things people have done. They'll do things like this where maybe they break it out by the host name, gives you a little bit more power here. Or they could even put in a filter. I've definitely seen this where you have this filter and then somebody could come in and say, okay, well, I just want to look at this ER and the Chicago Hope. And then you can go in and actually see, okay, I have this many page views for this particular collection. But the reality is, it's going to be so much easier if it works like this, and then if your chooser actually works like this and it has the naming conventions that match your business. The source of this problem really is if you go into Google Analytics, we're just pulling the sample data here, but you have a lot of data, these pages that sort of just look all over the place, and they have a lot of different problems. One is that you have just names that just aren't very pretty. You have location / Springfield General. And sometimes you even have capitalization errors where you have uppercase S and G, and here it's all lowercase. You can have other things too where you have this sort of location, say emergency room here, but here it's just ER because it's a completely different host name. And even here we have locations, but then it has hospital as the kind of in-between folder structure there. So there's a lot of inconsistency on the data is collected and stored and used in your system, and that's very common. So we're just going to walk through how you can work with your team to really say, hey, let's organize this data so it looks more like this and less like this. And the way you can do that is if you go into the data, and let's say we're editing it, they would just go into the resources, and they just manage this resource. And say we have Google Analytics here. This is a simplified version, but if we want to edit it, you'll have all these kind of default columns like date and host name and page. What you're going to want to do is restructure this data to fit your business needs. So the first thing that I would generally do is sometimes it's really good to separate things out so you can kind of see the different components, as well as tools like Google Data Studio don't always like a lot of SQL type commands all in one place. So a really simple one is called page lower that I made. So here I just take the page and use the function lower of page. So it makes all of the text lowercase. So now it doesn't matter if it's uppercase or lowercase, we can deal with it all the same way. And now that we have this new pages lower, I can go in and create the hospitals from the pages as well as the host name for our one use case. So I'm going to show you what that looks like and then how it can work in your data. So for instance, if you have the page lower and we had the Chicago Hope, we could use this what's an end function and basically say when pages lower in / hospital / Chicago Hope, we say then, and we output what we want our actual data to look like to match your business needs. So here it says Chicago Hope. Now, you might also have use cases where there's a lot of different ways that the data could look, and if you may not know the perfect full combination of the URL, or there may be some weird inconsistencies in it. Say you have like stuff that's unique to a single person. In that case, you might use the second line where it says where regex max, and then you say the page lower and then the rule. And so this is something that like any of your analysts should be able to handle, or a DBA or really a data engineer would be able to come in and really say, hey, here's how you need to structure that regex max, which is called a regular expression, saying I'm looking for Springfield General, and it can be anything can be around Springfield General. As long as it has Springfield General in it, we're going to spit out that Springfield General. Now, the other cool thing, too, you can get at the case statement is you don't have to just look at one variable. So we've been looking at page lower, but we actually have this case of a host name for the particular one that's /ER, for the kingdomlanding.org page, there was just a landing page for this particular hospital. So we could also use this in, and you can, on this other variable, and you can even have multiple ones. So if, say there was a site X or whatever it's called, you can create this comment and do as many different variations as you want of things that maybe are very different. So it's kind of nice to have all that kind of in one place, so it's easy to see what are the rules there. And then you spit out the Kingdom Hospital. And then the last one is you might have another rule on Kingdom Hospital when it's paged lower that you're looking for that data. And once again, we just looked at that Kingdom Hospital, and anything around it would still spit out to Kingdom Hospital. And then the last thing I'd recommend is sort of having this else statement just says unknown, because 9 times out of 10 you're going to miss something or something's not going to go through it, and you don't want that data to get lost. So it's good to tag it with something so that way you can go in, and if you see unknown in your data, you can kind of track down where did that come from and how can I clean that up. So in a nutshell, that's sort of the case statement, and that allows your data to really be matched up better to your organization. And you can use this not just for page names. In Google Analytics, you can use it for a lot of different things like host names, events, stuff like that you really want to clean up, especially say you changed how your Google Analytics worked at one point, and you had an older site and a newer site, and maybe the events names changed or were tweaked. You can come in here and kind of clean them up, organize them all in the same way, so that way that data looks consistent throughout history. So it's just a great way to really save you and the people that are reading these reports kind of mental power to think, I'm not trying to think outside of my organization in weird ways that Google Analytics works or Google Ads works, but exactly how my business works.